Hello, I'm John McBride. Thank you for joining me to visit the Goto Islands off the west coast of Nagasaki and to look at the history of the hidden Christians on the Goto Islands. Can I suggest that you first watch my YouTube Nagasaki Introduction of Christianity to Japan? It's a good introduction prior to our visit to the Goto Islands. My full briefing document can be downloaded at bit.ly/Goto Christians. The document also includes my references, including the excellent documentary O Taya, which can be viewed on Vimeo on demand. It's really a must-see prior to your visit to the Goto Islands. It's an excellent examination of the last vestiges of hidden Christians in the Goto Islands. The Goto Islands are about 120 kilometers off the coast of Nagasaki. Goto means 5 islands. The 5 main islands are Fukue, where the airport is located, Hisaka and Naru, with very remote churches, Wakamatsu, and the long island of Nakadori in the north. In 1797, when the Goto domain submitted a request to the Omura domain for settlers to cultivate undeveloped land, some 3,000 people from the Sotome area volunteered or were more likely forced to move to the islands. It was a way for the Omura domain to get rid of their problem of the hidden Christians. Life was not much easier on the Goto Islands, but at least the people gained some measure of religious freedom. They saw it as a religious sanctuary and carefully hid their Christian practices. Most of the 3,000 moved to Hisaka Island, also to Naru and Kashiragashima, all of which we will visit. These 3 islands are where the UNESCO heritage-listed churches are located. They also moved to Nozaki and Kuroshima. This is the beautiful Kuroshima Church, and an excellent website to explore these sites is christian.jp, hidden Christian sites in the Nagasaki region. The islands make up an incredibly complex coastline joined by bridges and ferries and Christian churches dotted throughout the islands. The islands are famous for their camellia trees. Camellias are farmed both for their fruit and oil, and the camellia pattern is often found decorating the interior of churches and is associated with the Virgin Mary. So in the Goto Islands, the camellia, not the white rose, is associated with Mary. Visiting the islands, I suggest you fly one way and take the ferry back. The high-speed ferries are available from Nagasaki Port. My recommended accommodation is at Fukue Port at the Goto Tsubaki Hotel. Tsubaki means camellia. Rooms are very comfortable and breakfast is included in the price. At night, Italian cuisine is available, but its sister hotel, Hotel Campana, provides Japanese cuisine across the road. We first explore the spectacular Osezaki Cliff, facing out towards the East China Sea. The cliffs are over 100 meters high, created by wave and wind erosion. The Osezaki Lighthouse is at the tip of a promontory which stands 80 meters high above the sea. It was completed in 1879. Its powerful light is 2 million candela and is seen 50 kilometers offshore. In 1898, the former Japanese Navy set up an observation post equipped with wireless telegraph, and in 1905, the post received the telegram warning, "Enemy ships sighted," when the Russian Baltic Fleet was first seen approaching at the beginning of the Russo-Japanese War. I'll leave you to read this information. At the northwestern tip is Kashiwa Fishing Port. Kashiwa was the last port of call for Kentoshi envoys from Japan to the Tang Dynasty court in Xi'an in the 7th and 8th century. Many historic sites around Kashiwa are related to the history of the envoys, including a water well which supplied fresh water for the Kentoshi ships and a shrine dedicated to their safety. The route became more direct through the centuries as Japanese sailors became more knowledgeable about crossing the East China Sea. The Kentoshi ships usually departed in a flotilla of 4 ships. Mooring stones are still visible in Shiraishi Bay, where they would spend their last moments on Mother Japanese soil. Many of them did not return. The Jihongai monument, Jihongai means leaving the outermost part of Japan, stands in memory of Kukai, who was on the 19th and last Kentoshi mission to Tang China in 804. Kukai would return to Japan 2 years later, the head of esoteric Shingon Buddhism in Japan. He established Koyasan, south of Osaka, which many people visit today, and his life is exemplified in the 88 Temples pilgrimage of Shikoku. Kashiwa was also an important whaling base during the Edo period. Whaling was always conducted in winter. A catch of 1 whale could make 7 fishing villages prosperous, or so the saying went. The whaling industry was a vital economic lifeline for the Goto domain. By the end of the Edo period, very little whaling was conducted due to overcatching. An elaborate picture scroll entitled Whales was commissioned by Ikushima Nizaemon, who was head of the whaling base. Our first church visit is to Dozaki Church in the far northeast island, far northeast of the island, beg your pardon. Soon after the ban on Christianity was lifted by the Meiji government, 2 French missionaries, Fathers Fragneux and Marmande, were sent to Goto in order to take part in the revival of the local Christian community. Father Marmande established the first wooden church in Goto in 1879. Dozaki Church was rebuilt in red bricks in 1908 under the guidance of Father Pelou, a missionary who succeeded Marmande and Fragneux. Some of the materials were brought all the way from Italy. Statues of Father Marmande, who established a children's home here, and Father Pelou stand outside the church. The inside of the church is made of wood with typical stained glass and ribbed vault ceiling. Today, the church is a museum with Maria Kannon statues, small devotional objects such as crucifixes, and less obvious symbols such as crosses on Japanese sword protectors, crucifix designs on ceramics, and the conch shells usually used by Yamabushi, mountain ascetics. These were used as the call to Mass. The Doro woodcut prints are displayed in the church. The name Doro derived from a missionary, Marco Derotz, who came to Nagasaki and devoted his life to the local Christians. He ordered the prints in 1877, and they were discovered in 1973 in a local follower's home in Toki. The prints depict the last of a good man, the last of an evil man, and the last judgment. You can see the Japanese males have samurai top knots. The scenery outside the church is calming, and the local street is pleasant to stroll, with delightful locals serving coffee and ice creams. Next, we visit Kusuhara Church in the central north of the island. It was built in 1912 using funds and voluntary work of local followers. Alongside Dozaki Church, it's one of the oldest on Fukue. A prison used to persecute Christians in the early Meiji era stands nearby. The interior is in muted tones with simple stained glass and the telltale ribbed vault ceiling. Nearby stands the small farmhouse where 35 hidden Christians who revealed themselves in 1865 were imprisoned. All of them died in the torturous conditions to which they were subjected. The frame of the interior of the farmhouse is original, with a block wall protecting the original structure. It's difficult to believe that 35 people were incarcerated in this tiny space and all died or were martyred. The old playground at the front of the church has actually just been renewed. The Mizunoura Church is nearby, and it too marks the location of a prison where hidden Christians were martyred. The church was built at the site where 18 believers were tortured and martyred. Mizunoura Church was built first in 1880. Later, the time-worn church, having been exposed to the sea for years, was redesigned and rebuilt by the great church architect Tetsukawa Yosuke in 1938. The beautiful white church has mixed architectural grandeur of Romanesque, Gothic, and Japanese styles combined. The church's structure is the same as the Oura Cathedral in Nagasaki City. It's a very beautiful church. This is the interior. And the site of the former Christian prison is on the side of the hill behind the church. It's reached through a pleasant garden displaying monuments related to the 14 stations of the cross. At the top is the site of the prison where 18 believers were martyred and is marked by a statue of St. John of Goto and an image of the farmhouse prison. The view from here is delightful. From here, we return to Fukue Port and take the inter-island ferry Seagull to nearby Hisaka Island. Hisaka's island population was 4,000 in 1960, and 60% of the island, or 2,400 people, were believers. Today, the population is just 280 and 68 are believers. The local fishing industry has also been decimated by the aging of the population and depopulation. An interesting new development in the Nauru Strait is the building of Japan's first sea current-driven electricity generator. This island, like all Goto Islands, is spectacular with its intricate, interesting coastline and this sort of internal lake-like bay and hinterlands. The primary place of reverence and memorial on Hisaka is the Roya no Sako Martyr Memorial, where 200 people were packed into a tiny farmhouse and 42 were martyred. The martyrdom church stands on the site of the prison. Now, this incident became a diplomatic issue in the new Meiji government and resulted in freedom of religion in 1873 under intense international pressure, led mostly by the French. After the local Christians collected donations to preserve the historical site, a monument was built at the site of the old prison. Inside the church, a light-coloured carpet represents the 12 tatami mat space within which 200 Christians were confined and tortured. They would have had to stand up all the time. Next, we return to the Hamawaki Church back at the port, where we arrived on the Seagull. The church was the first ferro-concrete church built on the Goto Islands. The survivors of the 1866 persecution were responsible for building the original timber church, which is today called the Gorin Church, now moved to the other side of the island, and we'll visit that in a moment. This occurred in 1931 when the badly damaged wooden structure was removed and later preserved, and this new ferro-concrete structure was built. So 1931. Again, the ceiling is a masterpiece of complex carpentry, which would normally be made of stone in Europe. As we head across the island to visit the Gorinto Church, the original wooden church, the views are enjoyable. This is the bay at the center of the island. And we arrive finally at the old Gorin Church, which is easily accessed from the sea. It's a little walk from the car park down to the church, but it's very safe and very pleasant. The church was entirely Japanese style, but the interior was a genuine church building with 3 aisles and an umbrella Gothic style ceiling and Gothic style altar wall. The windows are those used in domestic settings, and so they open outwards. A ferry service departs from here straight to the next island of Nauru. Or you can return to Tanuura and catch the ferry back to Fukue. Next, we visit Nauru Island and the UNESCO heritage-listed Egami Church. In 1881, just 4 families moved here from Sotome and were baptized. The church was built here in 1906. Reconstruction began in March 1917, and the new church was completed the following year with an area of 165 square meters. Tetsukawa Yosuke, the father of church architecture in Japan, designed the church, and it is said to have the highest degree of architectural perfection among wooden Romanesque churches. The simple, symmetrical exterior and snow-white boarding walls are the main features of this church. The characteristic arched ceiling and rare grained wooden ornaments are well regarded. And finally, we move to the most northerly island of Nakadori. There are a myriad of churches and related sites on the island. Our first call is the UNESCO heritage-listed Kashiragashima Church. This is on the island of Kashira. It's on the mid-east side of the island. Kashira Island was uninhabited until the end of the Edo period. Tai no Ura Bay Christians escaped persecution and moved here in 1859. The church had its beginnings in 1867 when a Japanese believer named Domingo Matsujiro Mori escaped persecution in Kurosaki in the Omura domain and moved here after receiving religious instruction from Father Petejan in Nagasaki. He initially established a temporary church as a youth missionary school. Remember, Father Petejan was the first father of Oura Church in Nagasaki. The rare stone church construction began in 1910 and was completed in 1919. It was consecrated by Bishop Kombaz in May 1919. Designed and constructed by Tetsukawa Yosuke. It's known as the Flower Church due to its floral decorations on the ceiling and brackets. And of course, there are camellias depicted here. The graveyard stands at the front of the village, overlooking the bay. The gravestones are interesting as they are typical Buddhist grave, 5-storied stupas, but they have a crucifix on top. At the back of the church is the location of Domingo Matsujiro Mori's home. Mori Matsujiro. The village consisted of just 10 households, extremely poor. Today there are just 2 households remaining, and we ask you not to walk down the main street of the village because it disturbs the 2 local households. The church cost the price of constructing 7 homes, and so I find the dedication of these poor Christians admirable. Next, we visit Aosagaura Church. The church overlooks Nama Bay, and its west-facing entrance takes advantage of the views. Tetsukawa Yosuke built the church in 1910. This early brick church has a layered roof and a well-balanced, refined style. And it became the model for other brick churches on outlying islands. This is the interior. And the bell was used as an air raid alarm in World War II. Local dedicated believers carried the bricks up for construction and participated in its consecration. This is the bay, Nama Bay, over which the church looks. And Yagatame is the name of the point located at the mouth of Nama Bay. Yagatame is the landmark for sailors from Hirado to the Goto Islands. Yagatame's name comes from the name of a fort here. Katame means a fortress guarded by soldiers with arrows, protecting Nama Bay from foreign enemies, hence Yagatame. Next, we visit the Oso church. Oso's wooden church was originally built in 1879. The present brick building was completed in October 1916. The carvings on the pillars are by Yosuke's father, Yoshiro, and the stained glass windows were imported from Germany. A conch shell holds the holy water. Next is a side trip to the small island of Hino. This is the journey to Hino. Now, Hinoshima Island has a group of fascinating gravestones and stupas. The earliest date to around 1300 CE, and the latter group from as late as 1400 CE. Many of the stones were imported from as far away as Osaka and Fukui on the Japan seaboard. Their presence indicates the strong development of sea lanes around Japan in the 14th century and the importance of Hinoshima and its seafaring heroes. Next is Hiyamizu Church, opened in 1907, 3 years earlier than Aosagaura Church. This was Tetsukawa Yosuke's first church. He was from the nearby Shinuo no Me area, a bit of a tongue twister. Unlike the red bricks of Aosagaura, his first church here at Hiyamizu was in timber. The ceiling has 4 section rib vaults. And nearby is the location of Tetsukawa Yosuke's birth home. The site is an archaeological site with several interpretation boards. I've translated the boards in full here, including Tetsukawa's life history. These are all included in your handout if you'd like to download it. Tetsukawa died in 1976 at the age of 97. He was truly the gifted father of church architecture in Japan, even though he was a devout Buddhist. He also built 3 temples and several very early reinforced concrete buildings. It's possible to trace his skills improving through the ever-increasing complexity of the church ceiling structures at Hiyamizu, Aosagaura, and then the Oso churches. Tetsukawa has 11 churches on the Heritage Register in Japan, and his Kashiragashima Church is UNESCO Heritage listed. Tomosumi village serviced a stone quarry, and the streets are paved with high quality stone. The former Tai no Ura church is in the center of the island, first built in 1881 as the center of missionary work on Nakadori Island. The former church that stands today was rebuilt in 1903. The belfry of the former church uses bricks from the Urakami Cathedral after it was destroyed by the atomic bomb. The former church is now a Christian resource and education centre. The new church stands in front and was built in 1979. On the side of the church are 4 statues: Father Bray, who paid for the church; St. John of Goto, who was one of the 26 martyred at Nagasaki on the 5th of February, 1597, the local Catholic artist Nakata, and Dominic Morimatsu Jiro, who was the first hidden Christian coordinator on Goto. The statue of St. John of Goto, staring upwards, is particularly poignant. A smaller monument to the side commemorates a shocking incident when, in 1870, 4 samurai from Arikawa tested their new swords by killing 6 family members, hiding in a hidden Christian hawk's nest. Later, the samurai were caught and required to commit suicide. We conclude at the Nakanoura Church. It stands beside a small inlet, with the church mirrored in the water when viewed from the opposite shore. The construction of the church is simple, without embellishments, although it has what I consider a very beautiful double roof. The raised ceiling inside is also simple, with just the ceiling above the altar having rib vaults. The walls are decorated with images of camellias, of course. And to finish, accommodation on the island is available at the main port of Narao, where ferry services are readily available to Nagasaki and Fukue. My recommendation is the Goto Islands Resort Hotel Margarita Narao. The resort is about a 15-minute walk from the port, and they do have transfer services as well. It's very comfortable accommodation, and a wonderful communal bath is available, as well as the ensuite bathrooms. And the same resort company has a similar hotel in the far north of the island, near the churches at the north of the island. It has spectacular sunset views, and it has an Italian restaurant, which is delicious, provides breakfast as well, and the fine views are available from the rooms. So thank you for joining me to visit the Goto Islands. I hope you're able to visit soon and enjoy your visit.